What's going on, guys? My name is Julian Jung. I am the host of the Blockchain Brief, where every episode we are interviewing innovators and founders in the blockchain and crypto space. Today, I'm very, very excited to have Mick Hagan, the CEO and founder of Mainframe, as well as our tech in residence, Eric Pinos, over at Game Theory Group. Mick, it is absolutely fantastic to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation. Let's get this party started.
Fantastic stuff. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Give a quick background on yourself as well as your team. Would love to hear about the domain expertise you guys have when it comes to building Mainframe.
Yeah, so quick background on myself. I dropped out of Princeton to start a company in the education space. It was a web app that connected high school students with university admissions officers. As kind of like LinkedIn, but where high school students could create profiles about themselves, and then university admissions officers could communicate and connect and recruit, et cetera. And worked on that for about 5 years. And we raised venture capital. We grew it to a 10 million revenue run rate. And then it was acquired by Chegg, which is now a public company in the US. And so that was kind of my first startup experience. I learned so much. I was a very kind of, again, Princeton dropout, young CEO, but just learned so many great lessons along the way. And then I started working on a mobile app called Undrip. And really it was in the content discovery space. It was a way, because I was super frustrated with the noise in social media. I said, there's got to be a better way to just discover the best content that my friends are sharing. And so it was a mobile app where you would connect your Twitter and your Facebook and kind of all your social media. And then we had algorithms to surface the most interesting content. And we worked on that. There was a lot of interesting, fun stories. Like we did a rap video to get excitement and hype from investors. We ended up raising about $1 million for that. Ultimately, it was just a hard business to be in. You got to have scale to be able to get advertising dollars, and social media is just a really hard business. So in the end, we decided to just kind of shut that one down and started to think about what we wanted to build next. And after working on kind of social media, I was like, you know what, I don't want to build like a social media mobile app. I wanted to go after something really big. And at the heart of Zinch, which was my first company, it was communication, it was messaging, it was helping people connect in a better way. And so really I started to think about communication and messaging. And initially my idea was like, you know what, why don't we make email better? IMAP, SMTP, these protocols. Our initial idea was to build an application on top of these protocols. And instead of just having a subject and a body, we said, why don't we add more metadata, more structure to the messages, so that if somebody's sending a message, they could say, this is a task, it's for Julian, and it needs to be done by next Wednesday, right? So some metadata around it. The inbox, at the end of the day, is like a very poorly designed database. It's not structured, it's not extensible, it's not interoperable. And so we thought by adding this structure, it would make it a lot more powerful. So we worked on that for about a year and a half. And that's when we said, wow, like we're just putting lipstick on a pig. These underlying protocols are just terrible. They were invented in the 70s. It wasn't easy for us to do what we wanted to do simply because of the constraints around these protocols. And so that's when we said, well, let's build better decentralized communication protocols. And that's kind of what led us on this path of kind of building Mainframe. Is we wanted to build better decentralized protocols that were unstoppable, that were censorship resistant, surveillance resistant. And one of the big challenges that we had before we kind of incorporated more blockchain technology was that even though the protocols were decentralized, a lot of our customers and the businesses that we were working with, they said, you know what, Mainframe, why don't you guys host our communication because you're the experts at these protocols. So in practice, it ended up being very centralized. And so that's when we started to explore blockchain technology, said, wow, maybe we could leverage blockchain to solve the incentivization challenge, which for me, that's the great innovation of blockchain technology, is really solving the incentivization issue and challenge, where a bunch of people who don't know each other can collaborate and participate and support this network. So anyway, that's a little bit of background of kind of what led us to Mainframe. But I'm an entrepreneur. I love to build things. I love to start. I love to create. I love to make. And in terms of some of the rest of our team, our CTO, he was an early miner of Bitcoin. He was living in London at the time Ethereum was getting started. So he was part of that early kind of Ethereum meetup, group. He participated in the pre-sale. Before he joined Mainframe, he was basically retired because of how well his Ether performed. But he was so excited about what we were doing, he decided to join us full time. we've got a great team. I mean, one guy he was with a company called Xamarin. It was acquired by Microsoft. He has a lot of experience working with developers and partners. We've got another guy named Kalen, which we haven't announced yet, but he started a very successful company in Utah. It was acquired. He's excited that he joined our team. Our team is stacked from top to bottom. One other guy, he's a marketing and storyteller and good kind of on the brand. When he got married, he and his wife lived on Bitcoin for, I think, 3 months. And they made a film about it. It's called Life on Bitcoin. You should check it out on Amazon Prime, I think. Life on Bitcoin. So anyway, top to bottom, the list goes on. We've got a team of people who just know how to execute, know how to deliver, have a lot of experience with blockchain technology. And I was first exposed to blockchain. I invested in Bitcoin in 2013. I was a mentor at Techstars in London, and one of the cool companies that I was able to mentor was called AidTech, and essentially they used blockchain technology to help solve some of the financial inclusion challenges that refugees were having. And it was the first time in my life, I think it was 2016, it was the first time in my life that I got to see blockchain solve real life use cases and applications other than just kind of speculation. And so anyway, that's kind of a long answer to your question, but hopefully that gives some context about our team, about our background, where we've been, and et cetera.
No, that's amazing. That's an incredible answer. There's incredible pedigree there. So that fantastic job on that front. So let's jump into the problem that you guys are trying to solve, right? And in particular, would really, really love for you to sort of hone in on just how big of an issue is messaging, and in particular around like the whole security issues, right? So would love to have you dive in and get your feedback on that.
Yeah, I mean, so ultimately what we're building is a network that is completely unstoppable. I mean, we could look at example after example of tools or services or products that people want to use but simply can't, whether that's the government censoring them, whether that's some sort of other third party or adversary or hacker trying to compromise them or disrupt them. And so there are a lot of reasons why we as individuals, but also why businesses, why enterprises, why governments would want more secure, more private communication. I mean, the number of hacks that have happened with kind of companies is sad and unfortunate. And a lot of very important information, confidential information, trade secrets were compromised, were breached, were hacked, et cetera. And so in terms of like the desire that companies have, that organizations have, and then also individuals, and we look at all the recent scandalous stuff with what Facebook is doing with our data, it's cool to see that individuals are also starting to realize that if they're not paying for the product, they are the product. And so it's cool to see that even on an individual basis, like a consumer level type communication, people are realizing like, wow, maybe we should care more about our privacy and our data. It doesn't mean that we're doing something bad or evil, but it means that maybe other people might be doing things with our information that we wouldn't want. So if we just look at a few examples, like in Brazil, WhatsApp was essentially shut down for, I can't remember how long it was, but there was a judge there that said, oh, WhatsApp is illegal, shut down. With Signal, which a lot of people in crypto would say that's like the gold standard of kind of private communication, they were using this method called domain fronting, which allowed them to get around some of the censorship laws in the UAE, in Egypt, in Iran. No longer can they use domain fronting because Amazon didn't let them do that. And so now just like that, they're shut down. They're no longer usable in Iran or in Egypt and some of these other countries. There was an example a few months ago of a journalist who was renewing her visa in China, and the visa officer basically started asking her about an event that she was running. And she was thinking to herself, I didn't publicly talk about this event. This was only a private event that I was communicating with in WeChat with only and she was a journalist, and it was a journalist event. And so like you look at all these examples where not only is the government censoring this information, but also just even enterprises are losing a lot of their content, a lot of their information through hacks, and sometimes it's even just the stupidity of their own employees. So privacy and security, top of mind. Billions of dollars are lost every year due to issues around this. And so it's a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity for us. It's a big opportunity for a lot of people to create tools and services that allow privacy and freedom to be a first-class citizen in our lives.
Fantastic answer, Mick. All right, so let's talk about practical use cases here, right? what are you most excited about for the applications of Mainframe? And what do you think, other than your project, of course, is going to really, really sort of be the killer app in the space for you guys?
Yeah, so I think because we have so much experience with communication, with messaging, we think that there's a great use case for our network and our infrastructure is kind of this communication messaging aspect. And so Onyx is the first application that we built. It's mostly just kind of a proof of concept right now that's built on the Mainframe network. And so the Mainframe network at the end of the day it's a peer-to-peer network that allows for incentivized packet routing, data packets. So it's not just necessarily like, chat or messaging. I mean, the use cases go far beyond that. But I think the benefit of building on the Mainframe network is that not only is it decentralized, but it's incentivized, which makes it in practice more decentralized because there's economic incentive for people to help support the network, to run nodes, to relay messages, etc. So it's decentralized, incentivized, and we have this really killer feature called dark routing. And dark routing essentially means that anybody who's observing the Mainframe network would not be able to see who you're communicating with. And this is really important. This is sort of the kind of anti-surveillance type stuff that Edward Snowden was really passionate about. Even though the US government couldn't always read your messages because they were encrypted, they could still glean a lot of metadata based on who you were talking to, where the traffic was flowing. And so this is sort of the surveillance stuff that with the Mainframe network, this is impossible because we have dark routing. Dark routing essentially is like if you were sending a piece of mail, like a traditional envelope mail, and instead of putting the door number and the street address and the zip code and the city and state, you just put maybe the city. Maybe you're writing a letter and instead of putting all of that detailed information, you could just put a city. And what will happen is when you send that letter out, let's just say it's going to LA, when you send that letter to LA, once it gets to LA, it's going to go to every single door in that entire city. So, and of course, only the door who has the private keys will be able to read the message. But for anybody who's looking at the network, anybody who's following that piece of mail because they want to see who you're speaking with, they wouldn't know at the end who you're actually speaking with. It's like broadcast to all of the different recipients in that area. And so that's kind of how dark routing works, where anybody who's surveilling the network would not be able to know who you're communicating with. And that's a powerful feature. So when you combine sort of incentivization, decentralization, dark routing, interoperability, I mean, we're not constrained to a single blockchain. If you're building an app on Tezos or building an app on, EOS or Ethereum, you'll be able to use the Mainframe network. It's a standalone peer-to-peer network that provides this functionality. So to answer your question, I gave a little bit of context around maybe the underlying infrastructure, but to answer your question, we see, any developer or entrepreneur or business who wants to build fully decentralized applications that are censorship resistant and surveillance resistant can build on the Mainframe network. And so messaging is a great example because we have all these examples where some of these messaging tools are censored, even Telegram in Russia, more recent use case or example, but even things like Twitter, a decentralized Twitter could be built on the Mainframe network. A decentralized Reddit could be built on the Mainframe network, or Medium, right? Or a social network like Facebook. These are the types of applications that can be built on the Mainframe network. And the power of it is that you would control your own data. Nobody would be able to stop your communication or your interaction on these services. And that's powerful. That's that huge value to enable developers to build unstoppable applications.
That was a fantastic answer, Mick. And so would you mind walking us through the importance of the tokens in the Mainframe platform?
For sure. So essentially, you can imagine a peer-to-peer network with a lot of nodes. And anytime you want to send a message, or again, more generically, you want to move data around, data packets, those nodes need to be incentivized to essentially pass that message to the next node until it gets all the way to where you want it to get. And so anytime you want to send data across the network, you as an individual need to pay in Mainframe tokens. And so the Mainframe nodes are rewarded or incentivized to relay messages, to store messages, because sometimes the person you want to talk to is not online. And so we have this idea called delegate nodes where the node who's delegated to kind of be a backup can store your message until the recipient node gets online. So relay messages, store messages, deliver messages, these are examples of what duties that mainframe nodes perform so that they can get paid in mainframe tokens. And so ideally, the end user experience, they don't even think about tokens, right? Like, like for example, we use Slack, internally for our kind of group chat. I don't worry about who's swiping the credit card. We've got one admin, our operations person swipes the credit card, and I'm off sending messages and we're using Slack together. And so ideally, the experience for end users who are using these applications don't need to fiddle around with tokens and sending tokens. Ideally, they're using what they would, a messaging tool like they would normally use. But in the background, somebody swiped a credit card, and essentially there's a cost every message you send. Now, on a per message basis, it should be negligent. Like it should just be minimal, a fraction of a penny. But yeah, there is a cost because we need the network to be strong and decentralized, and mainframe tokens are what will keep it strong and decentralized.
Got it. And so how far along are you guys with the project currently, right? And would love to hear a little bit more about any other partners that are building on top of your platform, anything that you can possibly share, but just milestones. You touched base a little bit about hires, but just give me some progress updates here.
Yeah, so our CTO just spoke at the Swarm conference. Swarm is a protocol used on the Ethereum network, and we're a big supporter of Swarm, and we're leveraging the Swarm technology. And he just gave a talk and talked about some of our targets and our roadmap and our milestones. But I'll summarize kind of what we're really focused on this year, and then I'll get to the question that you asked about partners. So what we're really focused on is we want to deliver real value for developers. We want to make it incredibly easy for developers to build these rich decentralized applications. Now, when I say developer, that doesn't just mean the weekend warrior. It doesn't mean the one-off entrepreneur. Certainly we can add value to their lives, but we're talking about governments. We're talking about enterprises, businesses who really value that added layer of privacy and security. So for example, we're working with a government, and then we haven't made this announcement yet, so I'm not going to say who, but we're working with a government, and they're kind of a more innovative government. People can probably guess maybe what region of the world it might be. But they can't.
Do they have digital passports?
I'm not going to say. We haven't announced it yet. No breaking news here. Maybe on other items we can break news here, but not on this. But essentially, they can't trust Facebook. They can't trust Google. And I don't know why, all the reasons, but they just won't. So they have their own application developers that build their own tools for their own internal communication. And so when the leader, the manager of kind of the blockchain initiatives for this government learned about Mainframe, they flew down to Mexico to watch us present at DevCon, the big Ethereum conference, developer conference. And he was so excited by what we're doing. He's like, wow, we have our developers building all of like this homemade stuff for solving our own use cases. This would make it so much better. We could build on the Mainframe network. They would still have full control of their data, full control of the functionality that fits their needs, but it would be built on the Mainframe network, which allows kind of this added layer of privacy and security. So that's one example, right? You've got these governments who have classified information. They don't want their adversaries or whoever to get that information. And so building on the Mainframe network just makes a lot of sense for their privacy and security needs. So that's one example. Another example is a big telco. It's a big ISP kind of provider in Europe. They're interested in Mainframe for two reasons. One is they have a lot of business customers themselves. They've got a lot of partners that they work with, and so they're thinking of building an application on the Mainframe network that then they can distribute and resell and kind of productize for their own customers. So that's one, is they wouldn't need to worry about the infrastructure. They wouldn't need to worry about kind of, just all of the guts of messaging that we're building. And obviously they are able to resell kind of the value propositions of privacy and security. And the other use case that they're using it for is just for their own internal communication and collaboration. It's a big conglomerate. So they've got a lot of different subsidiaries. And oftentimes when they're communicating with each other or when they're collaborating on a project together, it's incredibly inconvenient to figure out whose IT are we going to be running on. And this is constant back and forth. It's just like inconvenience of trying to figure out how are each of these kind of subsidiaries are going to work together. With Mainframe, they don't need to worry about that. No longer do you need to ask the question, whose server are you going to be running on? It's completely decentralized. So those are a few use cases. So again, these are big partnerships that are in the works. We haven't made those announcements yet, but those are a few examples of like, and I'll give a third, and this is kind of on the other end of the spectrum. After we presented at DevCon last year, it was around the same time that the Catalonian resistance was happening in Spain, where there's this region of Spain they're trying to break off from Spain. And, some of them were, as they were kind of resisting, as they were protesting and trying to break off, they were put in jail, they were beat up. I mean, a lot of serious repercussions. And so they started using Onyx, even in its most raw and rough and unpolished state. They started using Onyx, our application, because they knew it created that added layer of privacy and security. It had dark routing, it was obviously encrypted, decentralized, etc. And so that was a really cool use case. So certainly the network could be leveraged in the next Arab Spring, or next time political dissidents need to be able to communicate. And those are amazing use cases. And those are going to be great headline grabbing, stories. But I would say the day-to-day stuff that we're thinking about really is more big, governments, companies, businesses, enterprises, etc., where they really just need that added layer of privacy and security.
Wow, that is extremely exciting stuff, and congratulations on all the progress. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass this off to Eric now, who's got a couple of more technical questions for you. So Eric, the floor is all yours.
I had a list of questions. You guys pretty much covered all of it. It was really, really informative breakdown. I guess one area that I do want to go into is, you mentioned this aspect of interoperability. Does this mean that Mainframe is its own blockchain that can plug into these other blockchains, or how does that work within the greater?
So that's a really good question. So we're not building a new blockchain. Essentially, we're a peer-to-peer network that's leveraging blockchain technology specifically for the incentivization. So the Mainframe tokens are ERC20 tokens. So essentially, you can think of it as settlement between these nodes that are operating. Settlement between these nodes that are operating on this network will occur on the Ethereum blockchain. But in terms of a developer's ability to build on the Mainframe network, it doesn't need to be a developer in the Ethereum ecosystem. It could be a developer in the Tezos or EOS or any other ecosystem. And we're building these integrations or these SDKs to make it really easy for each of these blockchains to be able to connect with the Mainframe network. So you can imagine a developer building something on Tezos, and we facilitate that SDK to make it really easy to connect to the Mainframe network. And then you could imagine somebody else building on EOS, two different apps that are built on two different blockchains. And we will build the integration pieces into the Mainframe network, where somebody in Tezos could be communicating with somebody in EOS. Powerful idea. We're not constrained to specific blockchains, and we're going to make it as easy as possible for developers in all the different blockchains to leverage our network.
Okay, so in the people that are developing, say for EOS, they would still be paying the ERC20 token, Mainframe tokens to.
Yeah, so essentially, yeah, exactly. So obviously, if they're building in the EOS ecosystem, likely they're probably using EOS tokens, right? And so we will build kind of, essentially when I talk about these integrations or these SDKs, we're going to make it very easy for those tokens to be swapped for Mainframe tokens when they're interacting with the Mainframe network. So that's where a lot of the integration is. It's making sure that if you're building on a different ecosystem, that those tokens can essentially be converted or swapped into kind of the Mainframe token. But the Mainframe token it could be built on Stellar. There's nothing special or specific about the Ethereum blockchain, other than we know the Ethereum Foundation, we're working close with them, and that's kind of what was our default choice. But there's nothing specific about the token that has to be on Ethereum.
Okay. And so now so Onyx was built internally with the team that it looks like a team messaging app. You said all these mentions of like decentralized Twitter, decentralized Reddit. Some of these, we see some of these like being built like on Ethereum directly, and they also make these promises of privacy, encrypted, like you own your own data. So where do you see the shortcomings are in those currently existing solutions that made you guys want to take a step back and make it a different network?
Yeah, so I think a few things. I think one of the big challenges right now for building decentralized applications is that a lot of these tools, a lot of these technologies are still kind of in the infancy. There's a lot of development that's still going on. And to build a rich decentralized application, you need a few different services. You need computation, you need file storage, you need data services, kind of being able to handle databases and structured data. You need payments. you need communication. These are some things that you just need to build these rich decentralized applications. And right now there's a few projects that are kind of tackling a few of these things. And by the way, we hope to partner with these projects, but there's no single blockchain that provides these and makes it really easy for developers to build on. And they're just, a lot of the tools, a lot of these technologies that we're building on, like, have poor documentation. It's unclear what kind of the state of the code is or where development is. And so we think that, by bringing a few of these things together, which we want to partner with, the best data services project out there or the best file storage project out there, we want to be able to partner with some of these, and we are partnering with some of these. So by having a platform, by having a network that provides each of these service layers, which are essential to decentralized applications, it'll just be that much easier. Great documentation, the ability to have these different service layers. Mainframe is the only place that can provide that right now.
Okay, so last question. So Onyx is out now, and I downloaded it during this interview, so testing it out now, and I like it a lot. It's really cool, and it's like,
thank you,
intuitive. It works because I just came from Rocket Chat. We switched from Slack to Rocket Chat, and now probably gonna go support Onyx. Are there other tools like in the pipeline that are being built right now, or can people start building their own applications like right now today, or do we have to wait for a bit?
Yeah, so we're hopefully going to launch kind of our documentation around our platform and API very soon. So it's not quite ready to it's not the easiest experience to dig in right now. Certainly you can look at kind of our code base, you can go to our GitHub, you can see kind of what's happening, you can see it come together, but it's not the most developer friendly experience yet. We're still working on that. But hopefully soon. Hopefully soon you'll be able to start building some of these rich decentralized applications, and that'll be amazing. But in terms of what the team is working on, we're really focused on the network. We're focused on the infrastructure, on the platform. But we know that developers are much more likely to come and build on the platform if they're able to see kind of what is possible, what could be done. And so we are going to continue to develop Onyx. We're going to continue to make it just kind of a more production-ready type application, so that people can start to see like, wow, this is amazing. Here's a great application that's censorship resistant, surveillance resistant, and hopefully it'll open people's eyes to imagine what's possible and to start building on our platform. But this is similar to many other platforms. It's like people don't get attracted to it. It's kind of a chicken and egg thing, right? You need great applications to attract people. Once you have people in the ecosystem, then developers are like, wow, there's a lot of people there. I'm going to build for this ecosystem. So, that's going to be an exercise that we're going to continue to work hard on in terms of building community, having a great application that people can see and use. So we don't want to be in the business of building a bunch of apps. We want to be in the business of really building the great platform and network that other people can build apps on. But we might need to kickstart and bootstrap the network a little bit on our own.
Nick, this was absolutely incredible. Your energy and passion and understanding of the space is absolutely contagious. I cannot thank you enough for coming on the Blockchain Brief today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers before we sign off here?
Yeah, so for those of you, maybe some of you are familiar, we're not doing a public crowd sale at all. We wish we could, but we're US citizens, we're based in the US, and we just need to comply to certain securities laws and regulations. But what we're doing is we're giving away tokens. We're giving away Mainframe tokens for free. And we had a number of creative ways that we did that. For example, just last week, we raised $1.4 million for charity, which we'll announce soon which charities those are going to. But what I was going to say is we're still doing physical, literal airdrops. This is something that we've done in China. We did it in New York last week. And in a few weeks, we're going to Europe. We're going to London, Amsterdam, Paris, where else? Warsaw and Zug, and I think that's it. But so we have these events where we'll put physical tokens in balloons. We'll put balloons on the ceiling, and the balloons will fall. You'll pop the balloons. You'll get tokens, like real Mainframe tokens. But anyway, we're doing these events. So if any of you who are listening live in Europe or going to be in Europe during the last 2 weeks of June, we'd love to have you at some of our literal physical airdrops that we'll be doing. So that's one thing that's one way you can get Mainframe tokens, is show up.
Fantastic stuff. Nick, this was absolutely incredible. Again, thank you so very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Love what you guys are doing. Keep up the hustle. If you don't grind, you don't shine.
Take care, man. Thank you again.
All right. Bye-bye.